Hello. I'm Ben Finegold. I would say Grandmaster, but I played in the Pro Chess League qualifier yesterday, so I think they took my title away, even though it wasn't rated. For people who watch me on chess.com or wherever you watch me, let me tell you something I don't like. I don't like when I play a game, I lose, I had no hope. And then the thing comes up and it says, no mistakes, no blunders. And I'm like, okay, I lost, so that doesn't make any sense. And I got crushed. Like I wasn't ever even in the game. So I don't think it's the most accurate. You agree with not the most accurate?
Because it calculates like 5 seconds.
Okay, but even if it's like a bad computer and I made no mistakes and no errors, I shouldn't lose a blitz game with no hope. I should have some hope. But I have no hope. Like I just lost on move 1, and I'm white. Okay, so as you all know, do any of them know anything? Is there anything you guys know? Nothing? All right, what's happening at the end of the week? And why did I tell Karen to put this video up now? Ooh, Raj knows. Look at the look in Raj's eyes.
Championship?
Yeah, the World Chess Championship. Let's call on a random child. Are you a random child? Wow, you see how scared she was? You're a random child. Well, you don't know the answer, though. Random adult. You came a long way, right?
I did.
Name the 2 players who were playing in said championship.
Carlsen and Fabiano.
Yeah, you got one last name, one first name. Right. That's good, yeah.
I know
It was funny. Somebody on Twitter pointed out there was a huge newspaper article in either like the New York Times or somewhere, and they called Carlsen Magnus. That was what they called him. They were like, Magnus plays in the World Championship before they mentioned his name. He's just Magnus. So now, for those of you who don't know, which is all of you except maybe Raj, if you go to Wikipedia to look up Magnus Carlsen, which I'm sure you've all done, it doesn't say Magnus Carlsen. It says Sven Magnus Owen Carlsen. S-V-E-N, it says first. I've never heard anybody use that ever, but I guess that's on his pass. I don't know. Also, O-E-N with weird things, weird, I don't know what it is. I don't know what they do over there. Okay, so what I want to do in my 2 classes today is talk about the players and show their best games. Since this class gets more people than the next class, if you can call them people, we're going to talk about Caruana instead of Carlsen because, no, nobody knows why. We're in America. That's where we are. Now, a lot of people are confused, not surprising, Trump's the president, and they say things like, Caruana, he's Italian. Okay, Caruana not only is not Italian, he's never lived in Italy. He's been to Italy. Doesn't speak Italian. He speaks Italian, but sort of like you guys do. Ciao. Okay, and he is Italian because his mom is Italian, but even his mom and dad live in the U.S., and he was born in Miami, and he spent almost his first 15 years of his life, first 12 years of his life living in New York. So he has a New York accent. So he's not Italian. The reason people say he's Italian is because he played for Italy. And this is the same complaint people have about Wesley So playing for the U.S. Except Wesley So lives in the U.S. And Wesley So is always going to live in the U.S. And Wesley So is always going to play for the U.S. I mean, that's about as American. I mean, what else you want him to do? Now, Fabiano did live in Europe, but he lived in countries that weren't Italy. He lived in Hungary, he lived in Spain, he lived in Switzerland. And I played Fabiano right before he went to Europe. That explains why he went to Europe. Okay, I beat him really badly. And he was 11 maybe. And he was 2250. And getting paired with him in the last round was really insulting. That's the kind of tournament I was having. Because I was good then. I played like a little kid in the last round. All right. Now, I talked to my homies in Bruges, right? Where's Bruges? Very good, except that was a joke. So I talked to my homies, and I said, who's going to win the match? And they said, Carlsen's a 2-1 favorite. And they did complicated math to prove why. Okay, and their math was correct. I checked it. Raj is like, you checked the math. I don't know about that. Okay, and here's why he's the favorite. Raj will agree when it gets to rapid, that's not good for Fabi. He's agreeing. So what if you're the used to police, I'm sure some of you are, okay, you're like, well, it used to be the world champion retained their title if it was a tied match, which isn't really fair, or is it? So they don't do that anymore. They don't say, oh, it's 6-6, you're still the world champion. If they did, that wouldn't be good for Fabi either. Okay, so now what they do is when it's a tied match, as in a non-Gelfand, right? As in, well, it should have been a non-Topalov, but Topalov didn't want a tied match, so he lost. When it's a tied match, they have a rapid playoff, as in Carlsen, Karyakin. And a non-Gelfand, a non-1, Carlsen, Karyakin, Carlsen won. You guys know about that. That was the last World Championship, and it was in New York. If only you saw the look on their priceless. They're like, who's Karyakin? Who's Carlsen? What's New York? What's a World Championship match? There's thought bubbles above their head. Anyway, so if the match is tied, they're going to have a rapid match, which Carlsen will win. Yeah, because Carlsen's really good at rapid, like better than he is at slow chess. I don't know why. Okay, you know why. You're the computer guy. You're supposed to say because.
Tactics.
Tactics. Oh, man, just threw a word out. Okay, so probably it's 50-50 who will win the match if somebody wins the match. But if nobody wins the match and it's 6-6, that's really bad for Fabiano because his rapid play is not as good as his slow play. Okay, this is the closest in rating two players have ever been. They're 3 or 4 rating points apart. And whoever wins the match, or is it whomever, will be the highest rated player in the world. If Magnus has been the highest rated player in the world for 5 years, last couple of years, Magnus hasn't dominated like he did in 2012, 13, and 14 when he dominated. Then in 2014, something happened. Anybody? Nobody? Wait, you know what happened in 2014? Were you alive then? What happened? Correct. Correct. Fries is the answer. She knows the answer. Happened in 2014, and I was there doing commentary, was the Sinquefield Cup. And as you all remember, Fabiano Caruana started with 7 out of 7, which is a good start when everybody's 2,800. Okay, then he drew his last 3 games, 2 of which he was winning, and he won the tournament easily. And there was a very funny press conference you don't know about where they asked all the players in the tournament to describe Fabi's performance, you know, like spectacular or whatever. And they got to Magnus, and he said, sad. It's sad for him. Okay, so that was the funniest answer. It was sad. Okay, so let's look at Fabi's best games, and then in the next class we'll look at Magnus's best games, and then I'm doing live commentary here at the Chess Center. You can watch on Twitch, if you know what Twitch is. You do. Yeah, you play in tournaments on Twitch and beat me. You get more points than I do. What? Okay, by quite a bit. And so if you want to watch the match, you can watch it anywhere, irrespective of them trying to stop you from watching it, because trying is the first step to failure. They can try to stop you from watching it, but they can't. Okay, and they are trying. They're like, if you show the games, you're in trouble, and then we can't stop laughing. That's great comedy. So, all right, and we can talk about that forever, but I got to teach chess. Okay, the first game I want to show you is actually Carlsen Caruana, coincidentally, from that Sinquefield Cup. Caruana was black. At this point, Caruana had won all of his games. He was like 3-0 or 4-0. And they were like, finally, he'll get his comeuppance. And then Carlsen said, what? Okay. And they played e4, e5. Possibly we're going to see that over the next 2 weeks. And by possibly, I mean we are going to see that. Okay. And you guys have seen that before. Mm-hmm. Yeah, e4, e5. That's, yeah. Yeah. Okay, bishop c4. Carlsen is preventing 2 variations that black can play. The Berlin and the Petrov. Which one would Caruana have played? Nobody knows. Even Caruana doesn't know. He might know. And actually, there's an American grandmaster you've never heard of, Sergei Kudrin. No? Dang, that was my only hope. Really? Sergei Kudrin's been an American grandmaster for 40 years. Wow. Okay, he's played in like 23 U.S. championships. I try. He's always played bishop c4, and he just tries to avoid the Petrov. Because he wants to play the Gioco Piano Italian game, but doesn't want to allow the Petrov. So he plays bishop c4. Okay, now when I play bishop c4, I'm trying to sack all my pieces, and I'm doing it in blitz chess, and I'm losing. So don't do any of that. Okay. Now, as you all know, the Urasov gambit that white could play here, white would play what move? Remember, I said gambit. I'm trying to help you out. D4, that's right. Yeah. And I play D4 on the internet all the time. Now, some of you have heard of this unknown chess club called the St. Louis Chess Club. Possibly not unknown. And strangely, their most popular video on their YouTube page, which has hundreds of videos, Like I have over 100 on their page. Is the Urasov Gambit one by Doofus? By John Schranz. Jonathan Schranz is like 1950 rated. He made a video on this position. It has about 1 million views. Mine have like 100,000. Those are like my best. So I can't compete with Jonathan Schranz. Okay, now when you're over 2,700, you don't play D4 because that might lose a pawn. So, right. So you play D3. That doesn't lose a pawn. Okay, and also this is more boring. Now, what happens at the Super GM level, which I talk about a lot when I lecture, and when I'm doing live game analysis, is if the game starts out super exciting and everybody sacks all their pieces, that means they've already calculated all the way to the perpetual at the end. It's going to be a draw. So whenever in the first 10 moves you see guys sacking all their pieces, it's going to be a draw. They figured it all out. They're not like, oh, I didn't see that knight sacrifice. They saw it at home. When it's really boring like this, nothing happens, like what movie? The Blair Witch Project. Nothing happens, and then everybody sacks all their pieces and somebody wins. That's what happens this game. Okay, now the reason Caruana has a good chance against Carlsen is Caruana's good at everything. He can play boring, he can play exciting, he has great opening prep, plays the endgame well. Occasionally he gets in too much time trouble, more than Carlsen does. Okay, C6 is the main move. When I used to play E5 a lot, I played bishop C5 here. C6 has the obvious reason, what will black play the next move? You're doing a marathon man over here. Do you get that? We've talked about that now. Dustin Hoffman's in class. He knows the answer. Nobody else doesn't say the answer. Yeah. The teacher's like, you knew the answer. And he's like, yeah. You.
D5?
D5? No, he wants to play queen A5 check. That's the point of chess, is to check. No, I'm kidding. No, you're right. Yeah. Okay, he wants to play D5. As a kid, you should have said queen A5 check. Now you're too good. Let's go to the next class for better players. Okay, D5 is the obvious reason, as you said. Now, when kids have the white pieces and or the black pieces, they play E4, E5, move their 4 knights out, and their coach falls asleep. When grandmasters play, instead of putting their knight on C3 or C6, sometimes they play C6 and D5 and or C3 and D4. They don't always just automatically put their knights out like that. Okay, knight F3 threatening the pawn, even though I'm just kidding. He's not threatening the pawn. No, he's not. You know why? I told you why with my joke. My joke was correct. My joke was black wants to play queen A5 check. Queen A5 check would win the knight if you took that pawn. So if you're playing, like quite a weak player and you want to hope they blunder, you could play bishop E7. They take the pawn, you could check and take their knight. 50-50. Either it happens or it doesn't. Okay, so D5 I assume. Bishop B3. Now the pawn is attacked. Now bishop B4 check is a new move. Years ago, they always played bishop to D6. And then the white knight would go to C3, and black would say, what do I do with my pawn on D5? And they would do something. After bishop B4 check C3, bishop D6, the knight doesn't go to C3. You're very confused. You want to write the whole game down. He's taking notes. Raj is like, what? Raj is like, this is on my phone right now. It might be. Okay, so bishop G5 pinning the knight. Then they traded on E4, and this looks like a really boring draw. Looks like. Luckily, Carlsen never wants to draw ever. So when it's a really boring draw, sometimes he wins or loses. Whereas other players are glad to draw and never lose, such as the Chinese grandmaster. Very good. He drew Giri today. Although I don't know what day it is in China, so I could be wrong. It could be yesterday or tomorrow. And he's tied Mikhail Tal's record for consecutive games without losing at the top level, 95, for over about a year and a half. Dinglerin's about 28-20, number 4 in the world, and he hasn't lost in quite a long time. Something like 28 wins, 65 draws. Somewhere, I'm close. That didn't add up, but it was like that. Okay, and H6, bishop H4, queen E7. Not too exciting, is it? No, not exciting at all. Okay. And now, knight h5 was played, and all heck broke loose. Obviously, it's good to take the bishop because they're grandmasters. Grandmasters like bishops. h3, confusing the audience. So white wants to play bishop h2, then you can't take my bishop. And white wants to take with the f pawn and open up the f file for his rook, which is a little bit suspicious. That sort of ruins the pawn structure, but it activates the rook. So h3 is not a Carlsen type of move. h3 is really exciting. Man, that was a good insult. Okay. And Fabi did take the bishop. And now, knight c5 is what do I want to say? It's sort of like h3. It's like, come on, I dare you. I double dare you. And Carlsen took the dare. Okay. In this position, the f file's open, and the bishop is here. So black should be careful. Something like castles defending his f pawn. Okay. Then Magnus could play knight h4 and knight f5 and or knight f5, or maybe even knight g6. Okay, because if the black castles, this is pinned. And Caruana said that bishop was very tasty. Okay, I want to have this other bishop. I want that bishop too. And Carlsen agreed, just not in the way you expect. Bishop f7, confusing the audience. Now, here's what you don't see, except you're going to see it now, but what you normally don't see. Normally, when I show you super grandmaster game, and it's like, now we're going to talk about Kotov. Then I show you he sacks 7 pieces, he mates his opponent, and you're like, yeah, that was good. Okay. What you don't see is when they sack 7 pieces, then they're down 7 pieces and resign. The reason you don't see that is when grandmasters sacrifice their pieces, that's because they figured it out, that they're going to win. Not like, I hope this wins. Oh, I'm down 7 pieces, I resign. They don't do that. So this is an unusual example where Carlsen goes crazy and it doesn't work. If Carlsen goes crazy, that's because he calculated all the way to the end. But he decided if he doesn't play bishop takes f7, black has a very good position. Black has a better pawn structure. Black has 2 bishops. And now my bishop's going to have to retreat to c2. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's not good. Maybe it is something to sneeze at. Good timing. Thanks for, you read the script. That's good. Okay. And Fabi took with the king. He could also take with the queen. If he takes with the queen, we play the same knight takes e5, threatening the queen. And then the queen moves. I have queen h5 check. It doesn't matter where your queen moves. And then there's some attack there. And by some, I'm not taking black. By taking with the king, his king gets to escape to g8, where there is no queen h5 check, unless you're cheating. And you can't play queen b3 check, because I got that covered. Okay, so he checks, and king g8, as I said. Now, if the king was on e8, and white played queen h5 check here, white would win easily. But on g8, I'm not sure what the follow-up is. White's down a piece, and white's knight is hanging twice. So it seems like knight g6 is the obvious move. Okay, attacking the queen. And queen g5. Okay. Now this is super complicated, and normally Carlsen would have figured it all out and decided it was good for him, and maybe he did decide it was good for him, and he was wrong. Okay, so if white just wins his exchange back, black has pretty nice bishops here, pretty nice queen, pretty nice knight. This rook is a bit suspicious. If you have a rook for 2 pieces, probably that's not the rook you want. Maybe like here, yeah. Is that better? Yeah. If Carlsen was even better, he could. Well, no. Okay. So rook f8 check. Now, who can guess black's move? He was very excited. You.
King g7.
Close. It is close. You.
That's the only legal move.
What did he say?
King g7.
There's
King h7.
Ah, there we go. King h7. Bam.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I
Yeah,
know.
I just assumed he said king h7.
Now, rook takes rook is almost mate, but almost doesn't count. Then king takes knight. Okay. So he took with the knight, and now white's up the exchange. white has a rook for a bishop. Also, white has an extra pawn, or 2 pawns. Unfortunately, this is no good. This is no good. And now I'm going to mate you. I mate you. You mate me. Okay. So bishop to g4, confusing the audience. Okay, that's called what? Has a name. What's that called? Deflection? And you got more points than me? You.
Decoy?
Decoy? Getting closer. It starts with a D. Getting closer. It's a discovered attack. We attack the rook on f8 by discovery, and it's a double attack. It attacks the queen and the rook. Now, does Carlsen want to lose his queen?
No.
No. Now, if we play like a normal person, just normal, take this, and trade everything, materials equal with one issue for white. This guy, right? Is that guy going to escape? No. No. So the white's just going to lose. Okay, so we can't just take the bishop. He played queen f1, defending his rook. Now, when Carlsen sacked on f7, I would guess he saw this position. That's my guess. And he was like, I'm up the exchange. I'm up 2 pawns. What's the problem? And I'm guessing Caruana saw this, and his evaluation was better. Obviously, this knight's also hanging. This knight's almost trapped. And these pieces are pretty good. So this is why chess is difficult and why Grandmaster games aren't always draws. A lot of Grandmaster games are draws because the players don't mind. Draw's okay. Okay, when the players don't want to draw and they both want to win, then we see good games like this. When they're like, oh, let's trade all the pieces and it's a draw. I didn't lose. I mean, we don't want to see that. Okay, so here both sides wanted to win. If Caruana wins, he wins all of his games. That's a good idea. If Carlsen wins, he could actually win the tournament and stop Caruana from winning all of his games. And Carlsen is the world champion. He's the highest rated player in the world. He has the white pieces. Throughout history, when the world champions have white, there's like a 0% chance they want to draw. Playing for a win. Okay? When other grandmasters have white, if they're playing a higher rated grandmaster, maybe a draw is okay. Okay, that wouldn't happen with Carlsen. Caruana, of course, he had to deal with bishop f7, so he's dealing with it. Okay, knight to d3 obviously must have been overlooked by Carlsen, because who would see such a move? Now, if your opponent plays that move and I'm your coach, that's okay. If I'm your coach and your opponent plays pawn takes queen check and you go, I didn't see that, that's not okay. When somebody takes something and checks you, you're supposed to see that. That's not a capture or a check. So Carlsen played queen takes, but let's analyze like a normal move, like taking a free rook, right? Taking a free rook looks good. Now when I check you, you can see why the knight's here.
Yeah.
Okay, then that's a pretty good knight. Okay, probably even better is to play like queen g3, threatening mate. Yeah. Tough position. Now if you stop mate, I go here. And then I mate you. So Caruana played Morphy style, getting all of his pieces into the attack. So I can't imagine Carlsen saw knight d3 when he played bishop f7 check. Knight d3 leaves all his pieces hanging. What kind of move is that? So obviously Caruana cheating with the computer, obviously. Now, if you were playing a 1500 in a tournament game, and they played knight d3, then you checked it with the computer and that was the best move, what's the percent chances they're cheating? 100 or more than 100? Those are the options. But when Caruana does it, we're like, hey, you should be world champion. You're pretty good. Okay, so because bishop b6 is annoying and queen e3 is annoying and this knight's annoying, Carlsen took that knight. He took the rook. Now, strangely, material's equal. Both sides have 2 minor pieces, a rook and a queen. This bishop's hanging and this knight is hanging. However, if we just trade, you can see white's pawn structure is a bit suspicious. Also, his king is a bit suspicious. That's not a good king. Okay, so black is winning now, but winning and actually winning the game are different. Having a winning position and winning it are two things, especially when you're playing Carlsen. Now, I don't want to surprise the audience too much, but if you could believe this is true, I've never beaten Carlsen. Now, just to show what that means, let's take some random person. So we have a website, right? The Atlanta Chess. Okay, the guy who made our website, he's beaten Carlsen. Yeah. He's an IM, but still. Eric Rosen, he beat Carlsen about a month ago in a Blitz tournament. What? There he is now. He's like, I beat Carlsen. Okay, now it turned out, we found out after the fact that Carlsen was driving and he was playing on his phone and he had no internet. But still, he still beat Carlsen. Okay, all right. So Carlsen did take, and he played Queen G4 because the knight's not going anywhere. This knight, that knight's no good. It's trapped. Now, by taking this pawn, we have subtle threats. Let's play a random move. Is that a random move? Okay, now how does black crush white? And the game's over. You, incorrect. Got to assume something. Anybody? No? Ugh. Bishop. Oh, gotcha. Bishop B6 check. That's annoying. If you move your king, that's checkmate. So you got to play queen here, which I don't recommend. Although it is the best move, I still recommend it. Okay, so Carlsen didn't want Caruana to play bishop b6 check and checkmate him. So he played knight f3, blocking the f file. Now, it's not checkmate for several reasons. I can move my king to the h file and block with the knight, or play king to f1. Man, Carlsen's tough. Queen takes g3, moving up the line. e5 check, king takes. And now, I don't want to surprise the audience too much, because you can see it. Material's equal. Shocking. After all that, everything going on. However, it's clear, even to this audience, whose king is safer. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Is it clear? Yeah, they won't give an answer, but it's clear. Yeah. There's an episode of The Simpsons where it's time for Apu's arranged marriage, so he pretends he's married to Marge so that he doesn't have to get married for real. And his mom shows up from India. And then one of the kids says, "What's that dot on your forehead for?" And the mom says, "You know nothing of your of your Brahmin heritage?" And Lisa said, maybe it was Bart, "As long as there's no follow-up questions, yes, we know a lot about it. As long as there's no follow-up questions, we know everything." Okay? And then Bart says, "Does that thing get darker when you get mad?" And she says, "You tell me." She's pretty mad. Okay, so as long as there's no follow-up questions, we know whose king is in trouble. The answer is white's king.
Yeah.
Okay, we got a queen near your king. We got bishop demonium over here. It's like pawn demonium. We got rook. And even though it's moved 24, and this guy's the world champion, his rook is still staying up for the next game. Okay. Also, there's an isolated pawn. Okay, e6. Carlsen says, I'm going to make a queen that I'm going to win. Bishop b6 check. King h1. Queen g4. Attacking the pawn. Hooray for him. Right?
Was rook takes f3 just nonsense?
It wasn't nonsense. It's legal.
When the pawn's pinned.
Yeah, there's a queen on d3.
Ah, right.
Queens move sideways. That was to be thought of, but it doesn't work. Okay, queen g4. Queen d6. Rook d8. Queen e5. Rook d5. Now, rook takes queen is probably going to win, and rook h5 is probably going to win. Man, it's harsh, right? Yeah, but when you guys give up your queen, you hope to win. When you give up your queen against a 2800, you don't try not to do that. Try to find some other way of playing. Yeah. Queen b8 check. King h7. It's Spencer. we're looking at a game you were at probably, Carlsen Caruana Sinquefield Cup, where Caruana was 7-0 at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And he should have won this one.
complicated. He did win.
Oh, this was okay.
Yeah, I told him.
Like,
I told him in the last 3 rounds he was winning a couple of those games. Yeah,
Yeah, he's winning 2 of them.
yeah, exactly.
I'm gonna leave this open so it's a little more.
Okay, yeah. It's Spencer and Lulu. Now Lulu will lecture. She'll set up a position and find the right move. Exactly. Okay, so even though black is checkmating white and white's rook hasn't moved yet, we still have a pawn that's going to queen soon. That could be scary, right?
Yeah.
Are you scared? Not too scared. Okay. Okay, e7. Man, it's getting scarier. Man, I'm having bad memories of the game with what's his name, although I did win. What was his name? Rodriguez? Yeah, from Uruguay. He played e5, e6, e7. I was like, I should watch for that. That's not going to be good. Okay, queen h5 check. Because he wants to stop the pawn from queening and checkmate his opponent. They're both good ideas. Okay, knight h2. I think knight h2 was a blunder, right? Yeah. I think queen h2 barely loses, and knight h2 loses instantly. Okay. Now, I said before the lecture and or during the lecture, one of the advantages Carlsen has over Caruana gets in time trouble more, and he gets in bad time trouble. But I'm guessing, and it's more than a guess, that Carlsen was in time trouble here. This game was complicated, right? Okay. And he's got 3 legal moves, knight h2, queen h2, and knight h4. And it looks like knight h2 wasn't good. Rook check. You can't play knight f1 because it's pinned. So you got to take and play knight f1. Check. And now maybe the attack is gone and I'm going to queen. Hooray. Right? Maybe. Exactly. Queen g1 check. And now, I think he just missed rook d1 and queen f1. And now he resigned. First of all, black might have a mate. He might not have a mate. But neither player cared. We don't care about checkmate. We care about, is this pawn going to queen? If the pawn disappears off the board, you would agree black's winning. You would all agree. And the pawn is going to disappear off the board because I'm going to play queen e3 check and take it next move. So it doesn't matter where you go. Okay. And so then Magnus resigned. And Caruana won. Hooray for him. Okay. Although the next class is going to be Carlsen won. Hooray for him. All right. Now in the second game, it was in the same tournament against Topalov. And this game also confused the audience. Okay. e4, c5. Let's call in a random person. Lulu? No? She says no. I was going to ask her the name of the opening. Man, his hand's always up. Always up. You!
Sicilian.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
And what's my favorite Sicilian? Let's ask Raj.
Spencer just told me the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Pizza.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, exactly. He didn't believe you.
Oh, really?
All right. Nah. Okay. So they just flew in and their arms are tired. So it's the Sicilian because Topalov is going to outcalculate Caruana. Well, he could have about 10 years ago. Okay. Knight f3, e6. And we have an open Sicilian. And this is what is the Taimanov or the Paulson? Nobody knows. Spencer might know. It's one of them.
Awesome.
There we go. Yeah. Okay. So black doesn't do anything and says, are you going to play bishop d3 hanging your knight? And about half of you would. So it'd work out for some people. Okay. Knight takes. Now we're going to vote. Ready to vote? We haven't voted yet. Did black take with the b pawn or the d pawn? Who says he took with the b pawn? Who says the d pawn? Who has no comment? The no comments win. You might have voted twice. Okay, I would trust the master in the room took with the b pawn. Right. Now black gets a big center, although his development is a little iffy. But he gets a big center. Hooray for the big center. Okay, and people get their pieces out. Shocking. Queen g4. Scary, huh? And in the games we're looking at today, Caruana shows his great attacking prowess. King f8. That's a Ben Finegold move. if there's a position and the two obvious moves are king f8 or g6, I always play king f8. I should have like a sticker, always play king f8. Yeah, I don't like g6. Ugh, terrible. This ain't checkers. Okay, king f8, hooray. So Topalov must have won. Luckily, I don't play Caruana too often. And when I do, I lose. Okay, knight a4, confusing the audience. Now, we could talk for an hour about why he played knight a4 because...
You get paid by the hour.
Correct. Okay. Now, one of the things that differentiates the top players from the gawking rabble is the gawking rabble, once they have an idea, that's it. I'm doing that, it either works or it doesn't work. And then if it doesn't work, they're like, oh, well, it didn't work. Okay. The top players, they try to do everything. So Caruana stopped his opponent from castling, and now he wants to block the center on the queen side and control some of the key squares. With the knight not on c3 anymore, white could play c4. Otherwise, black might start pushing all of his pawns and getting two queens and controlling all these squares here. But after knight a4, he could play c4 and he could fight on all sides of the board and make sure this bishop never gets out. Is that a good bishop? No, but it could be good later, or maybe it won't. So Caruana plays on all sides of the board, especially when it's his preparation. Queen a5, threatening mate. Question.
Why not bishop to c3 when the knight was more advanced to a4? The knight was on a4.
Okay.
Bishop to c3.
I don't know what you mean because that's c3. I can't even figure out what you mean.
Sorry. The c1 bishop to.
Oh, here.
Yeah, to e3. Sorry.
Oh, so you want? Well, he just played knight a4. So if I can't, like, if you can play bishop e3 instead of knight a4.
Okay, knight a4 and.
Okay.
Move.
Well, it's not his turn yet.
Okay.
So you want him to play this next move.
Right.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. The problem is if black plays c7, c6 to c5, right? Then your bishops might get attacked by my pawns. Could happen. Yeah. What's happened? What's hanging? Oh yeah, that's right. See this knight over here?
All right.
Yeah. Although c3 would be okay, that defends. That's what you meant. Okay, so he played queen a5, and he wants to play queen takes e1. Now, queen takes e1 isn't mate because of one of my emotes. Bishop f1, yeah. But still, losing the rook would be bad. So Caruana played rook e2, confusing the audience. Okay, now the knight is protected by the queen, so he's lucky. Man, if I was white, I'd be really afraid that, like, h5 wins. I'm still afraid it wins. He played it. Good, I'm afraid it wins. See how the queen defends the knight? So if my queen moves somewhere, he might take that knight. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now I'd be afraid of g5. Yes. He's playing all the moves I'm afraid of. Okay. Now, if the queen keeps moving and doesn't defend the knight, black's going to win. So even though I saw the game, it was 4 years ago. I'm guessing I remember what he did. What would you do? If you move your queen somewhere, then I might win your knight for nothing. Anybody? Just lose your knight and resign? No? What do you think, Spencer? You think what I think?
Bishop d2.
That's what I thought. Yay. Okay, now here. Now I remember at the time, Topalov played queen c7, and the computer said if black takes the queen and white takes the queen, it's about equal. And then Caruana said, no. And somebody asked me in a class a few days ago, did the grandmasters ever disagree with the computer? And I said, well, they do, but the computer's right. But then Caruana just said, no, that's not equal. He's like, the computer can say it's equal, but it's not equal. So he really liked white in that position. Now, Topalov isn't a big trading queens kind of guy. He's more of a let's play complicated chess kind of guy. And I think when Topalov played h5 and g5, he wasn't thinking of trading queens. He was thinking of, I'll show Caruana who the best is. Because as you all know, Topalov used to be the world champion. I'm the Eustapolice. Okay, so queen c7, queen g3, and both sides get checkmated. So it was funny. White played queen g4 to attack on the king side. Then white played knight a4 on the queen side, and black attacked on the king side. They're making sure that I can't teach this game because I'm confused. Okay. Now, problem is, as the game goes on, it seems like this king is going to be pretty safe, and this king might start getting opened up since black moved all the pawns in front of his king. That seems sort of dangerous. Okay, h4. He saw it. Rook g8. He saw it. Rook e1, doubling up on the bubble up. Luckily, we have an emote for that. Otherwise. Okay. Now, let's go back. Okay. This position, when black played h4, he removed the defender of the pawn. So if you're good at counting, there's two guys on the e-pawn. And there's one guy on the e-pawn. Since two's more than one, maybe he could take that. Unfortunately, we have a queen and a rook lined up here. So bishop c3. Is that good for white or black?
White.
White. So black played rook g8. And he said, now you're not going to play bishop c3, so now I can play knight e5. And Caruana said, no, you can't. See, earlier in the tournament, Caruana played Carlsen in the game that we just looked at, and the whole game, Carlsen's rook was on a1. So Caruana's like, I'm not going to do that. Okay, he defended his pawn. Okay. And this position looks bad for black, because black's sort of out of ideas now. No more attack against white's king. G-pawn's weak, king is weak, bishop on c8's not very good, plus etc. c5, c4, as I indicated earlier. dc4, strategically, positionally very suspicious. I wouldn't even consider d takes c4, although I wasn't the world champion. Now, obviously, if it's white's move, probably white would take on d5 and play e6 and start opening up black's king. So if I was black, it would be more likely I would play d4 than d takes c4. But yeah, I don't like this position for black. Okay, h3, that's what you would have played. Right? Okay, h3 gives him luft. He doesn't get made on the back rank, unlike Spencer when he was 4. Okay. And we stop the kingside pawns from moving. There's no h3. There's no nothing. Okay, also, what black is in zugzwang. Not really. Rook d8, bishop c3, as recommended by you. That's what you meant, bishop c3. And unfortunately, black's king is no good, so Fabi sacks a piece. And he says, your king's no good. Man, that king's no good. Man, the truth hurts. Problem with black's position isn't that his king is no good, it's that his king is always going to be no good. Sometimes when your king is no good, 5 moves later, your king is safe. Sometimes. But here the king is never going to be safe. So Fabi sacks a piece and says, all right, time to take care of your king. Obviously, this is the threat. Rook g7, queen h6. Now, obviously, this is the threat. Knight d4, counterattacking. That'll work. The problem is white's going to play e6. Then the black king's doing even better. Okay, e6, ignoring the other threats. Man, e6 is good. Knight takes check, takes. So now, black's up a lot of material, but white's threatening. Queen takes rook, bishop takes rook, queen h5 check, queen h8 check. And there's nowhere to go. Like if you save your rook, then you get checkmated immediately. And if you don't save your rook, I'll take your rook. Then you'll get checkmated. Okay, so you played bishop f8. Very important.
Was it better to give back the sack piece by taking the pawn on e6? Right.
In this position?
Right.
Oh, knight takes e6 here?
Yeah. Because then.
Yeah, but finally this guy's in the game. Finally. Man, that looks tough because your knight's hanging and your rook's hanging. Man. Let's see if the engine says you're winning.
Your king lands on c8 or something eventually.
Dang. It says white's up 8. And you make fun of my computer for being bad. So that means white's up like 50, right? And here's the point that Raj understands more than most of you, except Spencer maybe. Maybe Spencer. Is when you're winning and it says +7, +8, +9, the worst thing is when every move is like that. If it's like this is +9 and the other moves are equal, then you have a chance. The guy might not play the number one move. But when every move is +9, then you're like, man, Raj is like, what happened to my move? I thought it was good. Now you don't like your move.
Well, it's just material.
Yeah, well, you take everything, yeah. Okay, so he decided to be out material. Bishop F8, always play Bishop F8. Queen H5 check. And, man, the truth hurts when the pawn's on E6. Okay, black played the greatest move ever. Ever? King E7. And now, even though black is a rook up, white decided that was a good idea and played bishop takes the rook. And unfortunately for black, white's ahead material now, couple of pawns. White still has the attack. The only move to win material for black is bishop takes G7. Topalov decided to resign. If bishop takes G7, white would play queen F7 check and E7, threatening everything, such as taking the rook, promoting to a knight with double discovered triple check plus tax with no tax, rook D1 check, queen takes G7, and I guess queen E6 is mate, but I didn't see that. Man, when the move you don't see is mate, that's when you know your position's not good. I turned on the engine earlier and my computer blew up. We had to stop the recording and do a new recording because it was too high a number. It was too high, okay? And for this audience, they know what I'm talking about. Too high. All right, now let's go to the next game, last but not least, against Spencer's favorite ACP president, Emil Sutovsky. Okay, the only Emil I've ever heard of is Emil Skoda. Anybody? No? No, there's no way you know.
No, Emil, okay.
Oh, you got me. She named another Emil. No, you.
Is he the president of Fry's?
No, but that's close. but that's close. No, actually, Emil Skoda is the name of the character on Law and Order. He's the psychiatrist guy. He's Dr. Skoda. He's played by the guy who won the Academy Award for Whiplash. Yes. And also he does the commercials for State Farm.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that
he
guy.
has initials for names, right?
Exactly. J.K. Rowling.
Yes.
LOL-JK. Okay, so as I was saying, actually it's, what's his name? Simmons. Yeah. Okay, so this is Caruana Sutovsky. Now, when you have two grandmasters and one grandmaster is better than another grandmaster, like if I played anybody, then usually the lower grandmaster is like, yeah, okay, a draw is okay. And especially when that grandmaster is black. So for example, if I'm black against, I don't know, Wesley So, okay, I'd be ecstatic with the draw and he would cry like a grandmaster. He'd have to scratch out the name and write his name in the book, okay? So you would think, based on that description, when Sutovsky's black against Caruana, Sutovsky's going to play, safe and sound, like in the song. But nobody likes that song, so he didn't do that, right? You agree. You're like, yeah, that sounds made sense. Okay, so Caruana's white against Sutovsky, and Sutovsky lives in Crazy Town, population him and probably Danny Wrench. Sutovsky never wants to draw. He plays like a lunatic. Caruana plays sort of sane, but this game just went off the rails right away. So they played a London, which is pretty boring, and Sutovsky said, nah, let's not play boring. Let's play C5. And Caruana said, no talking. You're the ACF president. ACP president. You should know that. Okay, takes. Queen A5 check. And we're already out of theory. The position makes no sense. Okay, it's just Crazy Town. Knight D4. Knight E4. Are you kidding me? Now, when you see games like this that are rich in tactics and there's no opening theory, we see a lot of confusion. Now, as you all know, there was the famous game, Jacobian Caruana U.S. Championship, where Caruana was taken into school, okay? And the game was over. Everybody knew that Caruana would win. And then Caruana made the famous blunder, F6, okay? Now, this game was played before that game, and so Caruana did it again, even a priori of the other blunder he played. F3, bam. Man, Caruana playing f3 and f6. That's why Carlsen's the favorite. Okay, bishop c6, e4. Now, it looks like a Sicilian. Now, what's funny is, in this position, if black plays the move e5, white has several ways not to lose a piece. Okay, I can explain all of them. The problem is, you know what the problem is? He did play e5. Okay, and Caruana lost a piece and resigned. As Liam would say, just kidding. Okay, and now, when I showed this lecture to a previous class, not too previous, pretty recent, I was explaining how knight b3 would save the day and how obviously knight takes c6 would. And then Caruana said, excuse me, I play the most complicated way to save my piece. And he played the move bishop e3. And if you were here earlier in the lecture and you remember it, you'll remember that he did the same trick when he was playing Topalov. He was lining up his bishop with Topalov's queen and rook, and Topalov could not stand that and played rook g8 before it happened. Well, Sutovsky's no Topalov. Sutovsky likes complications, so he made probably the losing move here, although I guess this is the only move. If you don't play pawn takes knight, what do you do? I don't see another move. Queen has nowhere to go. Okay, so he took the knight, and then he played this shocking move, shocking the audience. Karen, it's shocking.
I don't know.
Correct. She doesn't know.
Well, I mean, I can come up with some shocking moves.
Black has a shocking move. And if you didn't see this shocking move, you might lose the game. What's a shocking move black can play? That is shocking. Yeah, that's even more shocking than what he did. Okay, he played bishop h6, confusing the audience. Now all the pieces are hanging, so both sides lost on time. So the ideas are obvious. If we take the bishop, then I take your bishop. And if you take the queen, then I take your queen. And white's already sacrificed a piece. We can't be trading pieces. So he has to move his queen away and save his bishop. So he did. Check. And white wins the exchange. Why isn't black losing? Because black can trap the bishop. Unfortunately, the only way to trap the bishop, Karen made an emote. Don't do it. How do you trap the bishop? It's an emote.
Play f6.
Yeah, but never play f6.
Right.
But he played f6. If you don't play f6, I can escape. Then white's just up a lot of material. Okay. Now queen h4, which is a fork. So bishop g5 is forced. Takes on h7. Check. Knight d7. And black's hoping, even though he's down material, maybe the bishop's trapped, maybe the queen's trapped, and maybe this development isn't good. Maybe this development's terrible. But white's up a lot of material. Check. h4. The idea is we want to take the bishop, obviously. If he takes our bishop, we'll play rook queen g7 check, winning more exchanges. Bishop e3. Caruana played very tricky tactic. Bishop f6 check, queen g7 check. And now the most amazing move of the game, in my opinion, was my opinion matter. If you want to checkmate the black king, bishop c4 seems like a good start, but black just plays d5. Luckily, there's two white diagonals to attack the king from. This diagonal and this diagonal. Okay, unfortunately, we can't get to this diagonal. So you can't play bishop h3 check, which would be a really good move. So he played g3, threatening bishop h3 check, which would end up being checkmate eventually, because after king e5, we have queen e7 mate. Okay, so now Sutovsky went crazy. The correct move was resigns. But Sutovsky kept sacrificing his bishop. Bishop check. Okay, what he wants to do is he wants Caruana to take the bishop so he can keep checking and taking things. For example, if we take it, we have queen b6 check. The king has to go somewhere where the queen can keep checking him. Okay, and he's like, I don't need that bishop. I'm going to go king at d2. I'm just going to play bishop h3 and win. Then he checks him again, and he says, no, I don't need that. I'm just going to play bishop h3 and win. Then he checks him again, and he's like, all right, I'll take your bishop. Checks him again, and now we're out of normal checks. Bishop c1's crazy, Queen c2 and queen b1 are crazy. If you take the rook, we play bishop c4 check, attacking the queen on h1. So he played the move queen f3, which doesn't work. And after the aforementioned bishop h3, Sutovsky resigned. It's unfortunate he resigned for us, because if he had played on, he could have walked into a fork and a skewer. Ow, that hurts. Right? The truth hurts. For example, after king d5, we'll call on a random student, Karen. What's the winning move for white? That's a fork and a skewer. White can do it. Also, it takes something.
Let's see.
Christy wants to help. She wants to help.
Oh, okay, let's see. Couldn't rook h to f1? Or rook.
Ooh, that actually is a skewer. It doesn't work, but it's a skewer. Because I could play rook queen e2 check. Also, that's not a fork, it's just a skewer.
Yeah.
This move's a fork and a skewer.
I can't find it.
Also, it takes something. It's
And
a capture. And it's check.
I can't see forcing moves, only non-forcing moves.
Oh, I see. Queen takes b7.
Queen takes b7. The truth hurts. Yeah, now if I was playing a blitz game, there'd be a lot of the truth hurts. Yeah. Okay, and then you lose all your pieces. Now, Sutovsky can avoid that by playing the other move, king e5. If white wants to, white can force that position. And then we do it anyway. So Sutovsky decided resigning was a good idea. If I turn the engine on, which I'm afraid to do, because the number is going to be really high. See? Yeah. It just announces mate. In fact, it plays the skewer and still says it's mate. So I can't get some funny number. Yeah. So in this game, neither side castled and neither side moved their queen rook, and the game was very exciting. Unfortunately, sometimes Sutovsky plays more exciting than correct. And when he does it against people like me, he wins. Everybody's like, wow, you're great. But then if you do it against the top 10 players in the world, then you're not as great. Because it actually has to be sound, and they can calculate all the way and figure out why it's unsound. So that was one of Caruana's best games because it was so exciting. It wasn't like he won in 80 moves in a boring endgame like you're going to see next week. Okay, instead, everybody sacks all their pieces, the kings are running around, every move is check, and the audience is confused, but entertained. And in the end, isn't that the real truth? The answer is no. This is Grandmaster Ben Finegold from the Chess Club and or Scholastic Chess Center of Atlanta. Watch for our coverage of Carlsen Caruana starting soon. Bye, everyone.